and tell us all the stories they can in 30 minutes or 40 minutes or less. Okay. And we'll go as long as you guys want to keep talking.
Don didn't get hardly to say nothing yesterday.
Yeah, I know, you got to kind of...
Well, there wasn't anything to say. I mean, he was talking about an action that I wasn't on at first. I mean, I did go out, later.
Because you got bumped off the tank?
Bumped off by the lieutenant.
By the lieutenant?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that kind of aggravated me, but hey, officers rule.
But you were sitting in a comm check.
We were monitoring radios back at the CP
well,
command
post.
post.
Going on?
Yeah, and then when the Amtrak started coming back with the wounded, then I went out to help them offload the wounded.
Right.
And when I found out they were going back up with supplies, I think one of the Amtraks had a 105 howitzer on it, So they were anxious to get back up. So yeah. I climbed up there, took an M16 from one of the piles of weapons from the wounded.
On the Amtrak?
On the Amtrak,
wow.
Yeah. Because I know they're going right back up to these guys.
Yeah. Because they were still stuck up.
They'd pulled back, waiting, I think, for a resupply,
Yeah, we needed ammo. As far as 90, when we was out.
Yeah, because you guys fired about everything you had, didn't you?
Yeah. I keep thinking we had one Willie Peter round left. And we didn't shoot it because the company commander said we could.
Any reason behind that? You can't shoot?
He was afraid that was a smoke round.
Right.
It makes a big white cloud of smoke. And he was afraid that the 152s up north in North Vietnam would be able to use that for a spotting thing that dropped rounds on us.
Okay. Let me capture a little bit of the background too. What year was this? What month?
January the 19th of 1968.
Okay.
Yep.
It was 19 days past my 19th birthday.
Really? Wow.
When numbers line up like that, I get
Yeah.
13 days before my 13th, before my rotation date, on a Friday the 13th, I ground guided a tank over a mine and got knocked on my can. And I had planned on extending, and I changed my mind.
Oh, the 13th of October?
Yep, it was a Friday.
And 4 days later, I ground guided a tank over a mine, and it took me out of the action.
You were always trying to beat me.
They surveyed me, sent me back to the States.
Yeah.
No, ground guiding, you're in front or behind the tank in your direction. And typically, they hit the mine and it goes out to the side, but there's got to be junk that comes right at you too.
Yeah.
Well, coming took you up, like took your shoulder off you.
Yeah, it hit me pretty hard. It blinded me and blew out my eardrums. I say they surveyed me. That's Marine jargon for send it back and get rid of it.
Now, did you go back in the field after?
After that? No.
They got a medical discharge.
Yeah.
Choppered me out and went to Guam for a hospital, and then eventually back to Corpus Christi, Texas. And then they kept me for about a year and transferred me over to the VA. And I didn't want to be with the VA, so when they signed me out under DOD and tried to sign me back in with VA, I wouldn't sign the papers because now by this point I'm medically retired and I could use any military hospital.
Oh, okay.
So I went back to my home in El Paso and checked into the Army Hospital, William Beaumont Army Medical Center, and they had, of course, they were treating casualties from Vietnam all the time. And they had great medical staff there, especially for orthopedics. And
I had no idea that was. I thought you automatically went to the VA.
Well, they automatically tried to send me to the VA, but you have to sign in.
There was a lot of horror stories in them days. We didn't like to go to the VA hospital because they would put people away and just warehouse them in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And
well, the VA I was sent to though was Amarillo, Amarillo VA Hospital, Amarillo, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't prepared for Vietnam.
They're way up north of up there in the Panhandle.
Right.
What they call it Panhandle.
Yeah. Corpus was a Navy hospital, right?
Corpus is a Navy hospital, yeah.
And then El Paso was.
El Paso was an Army hospital.
Army, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you both get medevaced out?
No, I had actually rotated, and they had sent me down to Quang Tree before they sent me to Da Nang to catch the flight home. And he actually got out of country before I did. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it till I got to Camp Lejeune, and John Hancock, you know, was with us yesterday, told me, you know, Mac got hit. What?
Wow.
You're probably wondering why I was ground guiding a tank on an operation.
Yeah.
We'd come across a river. It wasn't a river, it was a swollen stream, but it was pretty doggone deep. And there were duds laying in it, you know, and all different calibers, you know. So somebody put them there, obviously. And we had infantry moving in front of us, and the captain wanted to get the tanks up there behind him as quick as we could. And he said, do you think we can get the tank across that thing? We were afraid maybe the bottom was too soft, you know. So I waded across it, and it held fine. And we weren't near any mines or duds. And I got across and waved for the tank to come on across. And he came up, and I put my hands over my head, indicating to stop. And I don't remember anything after that.
Wow.
They say that with every explosion, there's the KB factor. Kaboom. I didn't hear the boom. It was just boom, you know, and I'm laying on the ground, I'm disoriented. And then I hear them yelling for corpsmen and calling in for a medevac chopper.
Did they get in and get you? Were you in a spot where the chopper could get in? Okay.
Yeah, we were right off the South China Sea.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we could have landed on the beach anywhere. That kind of aided to my injury because it blew sand and dirt in my eyes, and I was blinded for about 3 weeks, I guess. And I could open my eyes and see light, so I knew I was probably going to be all right.
Yeah. What grunt group? Excuse me. What grunt unit were you going, or were you with? Do you know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But and my memory's a little fuzzy nowadays. But I believe this was Operation Napoleon Saline 2.
Okay.
It was a big deal because B-52s hit the area that morning before we went in.
Well, Arclight?
Arclight, yeah. It was awe-inspiring. But we could stand there waiting, you know, for the Arclight to finish, and the ground is just heaving like this.
Like you're in one of those earthquakes out in California or something.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Yeah, they really are. So that's why I assume, I've told people about the action that we were in that day, and they said, no, that wasn't Napoleon Saline 2, you know, but it was my understanding that's what it was when we went on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many tanks?
I think it was a whole company, which would have made 15.
Yeah.
And they don't send 15 tanks out on a sweep, you know.
Bravo or Alpha?
Charlie.
Charlie company.
Yeah, that was. But since then, I don't know what happened. I haven't talked to anybody. You know, I was hoping that some of them would be here at the reunion. But
that's the first time I've heard that operations name in the interviews we were doing.
Seems like I have it on mine, and you know, really, I'd already left. But they used to have some of those operations that we never knew the name of, and
Amen.
later on they would have the say this is what you did or where you was at, and some of them went on for months and months.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah, like Napoleon Saline 1.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know when it ended and Saline 2 started. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know? But we had a lot of firepower out there for just a sweep. But yet that's what it says on telegrams that they sent back to my parents that that I was injured on a sweep, you know. But if it was a sweep, that was the biggest sweep I was ever on, you know.
That was just before LBJ decided he would not run for office again, and he would suspend all bombing of North Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't, what was it, November, December after that, it was 68 that he did that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And left us with our skivvies flying in the wind if we wore them in those days.
Yeah. Wow.
John had a real good story about his experience with malaria, though. We were good friends over there. We were on my first tank crew. He was there.
Right.
He was senior to me. I think he was a corporal at the time. Yeah.
Well, I was a lance corporal, and then they made me a corporal later on.
Yeah.
At Charlie 4, but they made you a lance corporal, as I remember. So you was.
Now, did you go in country You went in ahead.
Yeah, I went in October the 6th when he got there.
Okay,
November
Don
3rd.
got there.
November 3rd.
Okay, so relatively close together.
Yeah, but he was there a month. He was senior than me.
Well,
He knew it all, man.
believe it or not, in some ways that would be true. I mean, just being there a month, 4
Yes.
weeks, could be a lifetime.
Yeah, you could experience a lot.
And, you know, I got to, really, when I started really trying to get a chronological order of what was going on with me during that year, 12 months and 20 days, I suddenly realized stuff that I was thinking, God, we were there forever, there for months at a time. We was there for 2 weeks maybe, you know?
Yeah.
But it seemed like forever.
Yeah.
Well, were you the guys that were in the 7-hour firefight that seemed to be
Oh, yeah, that was,
2.5 weeks?
yeah.
You know,
Well,
that's-
firefights in Vietnam generally didn't last very long. You had to talk to the grunts in, you know, a minute or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You know, that's when all the damage was done, and
Yeah.
then they would withdraw. You know, it was interesting.
Well, you know, there was another thing maybe a month later, and I thought you was the loader on it. I was gunning. We went right back up there to about the same spot and confronted those people again.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Holmes was the tank commander then. And he still he hadn't adjusted, he hadn't done something with his rangefinder. The rangefinder, you know, was used by the tank commander as his aiming. And for some reason, his was pointing, like, if he got a hold of the thing and laid it with his, my sights would be straight.
Straight up.
But anyway, he couldn't get it on because his sights were off. So they had me, we were shooting over a sand dune. And because of where the people were, I don't want to say gooks on there, but they were gooks.
Yeah.
I had to bounce them rounds right across the top of that sand dune like that to get into them. And it worked. I think we fired about 7 or 8 rounds, and 6 of them got there. The other 2 blew up on the dune, and the grunts were screaming.
Would they deflect and then go down?
Well, they would just, you could see the sand.
Just skim the top.
Skim the top of it, and then that was enough to get, they claimed that we killed 2 or 3 of them up there.
Wow.
But what was that, like $800 a round?
Yeah.
And so we spent several $1,000s killing 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. Wasn't really efficient, was it?
Now, these were NBA though, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. Tell me about the malaria.
The malaria, I made corporal.
Uh-huh.
They sent me to the 3rd platoon. Well, the morning, they said, you're going up to Dong Ha and join the 3rd platoon. I go up to Dong Ha. There's no 3rd platoon at the Dong Ha tank park. But he said, oh, get in this Jeep, go with him, go up there. They're staged on Route 9. He says, 3-3 is your tank now. Take off. We are going on Operation Pegasus to relieve Khe Sanh.
Oh.
Now, if you read the history books, that was 1st Cavalry's big deal, but there was a bunch more of us up there.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm up there probably through the month of April. And I get R&R. And I go to Hong Kong. And I meet a sweet young woman.
Happens every time.
And I kind of squat, you know, some of them guys jump from sack to sack, or them ladies, but I liked her and she liked me, and we spent some time together, and we went out and went to the Tiger Balm Gardens, which is some kind of, it's kind of like an Oriental Disneyland. Got these statues, all these demons and things from Chinese folk, mythology. And come back, I got back from R&R, went to Quang Tri, went up to Dong Ha because supposedly my tank was up there, and it was. And there was this lieutenant I knew from 5th Tanks. He had just reported in. And all of a sudden he comes running out and says, let's go. And I had to leave one of my crewmen there. It was kind of like that other thing.
Yeah.
But I knew this guy and he was fairly confident. We jump in the tank and we head right up well, I say only good. It's, you know, Vietnam #1 highway,
Right.
straight out of Dong Ha going north toward GLM. And we get up there and evidently he's been over enthusiastic. Somebody calls up and says, get your butt back down here, but leaves me up there. And they bring my crewman back to me. So we're up there, and I think it's the beginning of that battles around Dido.
Okay, yeah.
We sit up there, and that night I start getting sick. I mean, just, you know, feeling bad, sore throat, fevers and junk like that, just kind of stuff you get. And I'm really freaking sick. And the next morning they take my temperature, it's like 104. And now one of the things we had done though, had to do, we were about out of gas or diesel when we went up there. And so when they had a resupply, I told them, hey, I need like 100 gallons of fuel at least. And so that's the only time I ever had to do the manual pumping business. And we got it all done, and then they said, well, you got to go back to Dong Ha now. So we start out, and I get up to the road a little ways, and here's the fuel truck. They sent it for me.
Oh my gosh.
That was pretty typical, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we go into Dong Ha, and I go see the corpsman, and well, I'd already seen the infantry corpsman. He's the one that took it. I go see him, and he says, yeah, I think you got malaria. So I went down to Delta Med, and I was standing in the sick bay line, and all of a sudden the fever broke, and it was just like somebody poured a bucket of water over you. I went and hung over there was a garbage can there, and I hung over that thing, just puking my guts up. But the fever's gone now. Well, they can't test you for nothing when you got a fever, but they took me in there anyway and laid me down over in the corner. Well, I don't know, you know what triage is.
Yeah.
And they put the dead over there, the guys that are gonna die. And I'm laying there with the guys that are gonna die. In fact, there's one laying next to me that I think is dead already because he ain't got a face. It's gone. And I'm laying there, and that guy sat up and spit.
The dead guy?
The dead guy. At least I thought he was dead. I mean, his face was just gone.
Good Lord.
I guess they fixed him. I don't know. But, you know, under the circumstances, I thought, oh man, I'm hallucinating.
Yeah.
But the fever started building back up, and they took me out to the flight line. They medevaced me down to Fubai, to the hospital down, I think it's Alpha Med. And on the way there, they take me out, and these Air Force guys are carrying us out and put us on a ambulance to go out to the flight line. And they start dropping mortars, I think, over on the other side of the airbase. This guy's all shook, so he slams the door, and my toes in the door.
Oh, jeez.
And now I've been about half passed out. I came to, and his mother's hair turned white. I want you to know.
Oh my gosh.
I said some nasty words to that boy. But they took me to Fubai, and they laid me out. They was evidently bringing in a bunch of guys from Dido because they had wounded all over the place. And of course, I'm just dying of a stupid disease. I felt kind of bad about that. They laid me out in the grass there and threw a poncho over me, and I laid there for probably 2 hours before they got around to getting me. And then I was in that hospital for several weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long. And then they sent me to Cameron Bay for a week and come back. And while I was at Fubai, this doctor kept talking about something Chinese, and I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. But I found out later on there was a really virulent form of malaria that was found in Hong Kong, or in the South China area. And I've often wondered if my particular bout of malaria could be termed a venereal disease. You know, I don't know. But I've been up there in the mountains too, and it was bad up that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Tony Sims got the same.
I was gonna say half the guys here probably had some form of malaria at some point in time.
But that's pretty much the malaria story. I come back to Cam Low, to the hill up there, which is actually Charlie 3, I think is the proper name of it. And I weighed about 163 pounds, which you can envision me. I look something like an Auschwitz survivor.
Wow.
And well, it was the 1980s before I stopped having.
Yeah, it doesn't go away.
I hadn't had one since about 1985 or 6, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was something I just assumed that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
It did.
That was rough, huh?
Yeah, kind of. Now, I tell you, this is a funny thing. I was at Fubai. I didn't eat anything at Fubai. I mean, the whole however long weeks I was there, I did not take any food in. That's probably what way under 60. But one morning, some guy come back from the mess hall and says, they got cold grape juice. Cold grape juice. Who's seen grape juice? And I go to that mess hall. I mean, I staggered up to that mess hall and got in there and got me a glass of, it was just about like this. Drank it down. Nice cold grape juice. Run outside and puke it up.
Yeah.
Still cold. It was just as good coming up as it was going down. I still remember that was a thrill.
Those were crazy times.
They were.
Yeah.
I didn't. Mr. Hughes here was a good friend of mine. I didn't even know he had malaria until he probably was over it already.
Yeah. You know, Charlie 3 about that, or Charlie 4 still, or down around Lafayette.
The guys would be there one day and they'd be gone the next. And say, oh, he was either air vac'd out, you know, or he was transferred to another unit. And that was the problem I think I hated most, is you didn't know what was going on around you.
Yep.
You know, I asked John here if he'd ever seen a map in Vietnam, you know, other than the little maps that the grunts use when they go out on patrol. You know, they need to call artillery in or something. And I can't think of anybody that saw a map. I was in the colonel's CP one time, and he had nice maps on the wall, you know.
Yeah.
We never had.
We didn't have them. You know, I was thinking if we had to, of course, Marines don't retreat, but if we had to attack in another direction, wouldn't know what direction to go, you know. We know south, you know, you don't go north if you're retreating, so, you know. But as C4, I think we were the furthest north of any base in South Vietnam.
At the time, yeah.
Because when you look at a map, you see that what Con Tien, Khe Sanh, all that stuff is southwest of you, you know.
Could you see the Ben Hai from C4?
Ben Hai?
Could you see
Ben
the
Hai
river?
River.
Oh, no, you couldn't see it. You could see Tiger Island out there, though, and that was supposedly on a clear day and wasn't always visible.
Now, if you went out to the beach, and you could see in the general vicinity up there, and they built that ocean view where we had just north of where we had that battle in January.
Dunes, yeah. And
they could see the Ben Hai. They used to shoot it at Oriental Gentleman over there across the river on occasion.
Yeah, we've had several stories that
I was going to say, Peavy wrote a book, you know, and in one of them he told a story about shooting around 90 millimeter round right past some guy out there fishing.
Yeah. Well, he probably wouldn't fish it either.
No, that's true. We catch them on the beach mending a net, you know, but they weren't mending nets. They were making sure nobody was around before they planted mines, you know.
Exactly.
One guy was about 6'4", you know. He had to be Chinese, you know.
Yeah. They would be Orientals and such, or Chinese people running around.
Yeah.
They were advisors just like we were advisors to some of them others.
Yeah.
I think there was Russians too. I heard there was Russians around, but I never saw one.
Yeah.
You hear all kind of things and all.
Yeah. And again, you didn't know if it's true or not, you know.
Oh, no.
It's,
But people did get eaten by tigers. That happened up in the mountains.
Did you ever see any wild, I mean, you hear the big snake stories and the tigers and the gorillas.
I shot a big snake. You want to see the picture?
Yeah.
we've seen plenty of snakes, but I never saw a
Yeah.
really
I
big.
saw-
Mostly we would see
Yeah.
those, there at Charlie 4, those sea snakes, those
Oh,
crates.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an engineer who was also from Florida, and so to freak out all the rest of you guys, we used to kill them snakes and eat them.
Oh, there he is.
See, I'm holding that snake up by the tail and his head's still on the ground, or what's left of his head.
You get that?
Lift it up a little bit more. You know, down it comes right when you tilt it
Oh.
this way. So you get out of there.
That may have been a cobra, I'm not sure, but he never flared his neck when he killed him. So. Now, I read a book one time about Vietnamese, a Vietnamese guy had written a book about Vietnamese wildlife, and he claimed there was a snake they called the horse snake. I often wondered, is that a horse snake?
Really? Any rock apes? Did you ever see any?
I heard stories about them, but I never saw one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Grunts always had stories about tigers and apes and
Yeah.
elephants, you know. Yeah.
We did kill a chicken up on Route 9. We called him El Rojo, 'cause somebody, I think actually it was a wild jungle fowl is what it was, which is an ancestor of chickens, kind of a pheasant.
Have any meat on them?
Not enough. I mean, he was only maybe that big.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything was miniature.
Well,
Yeah.
and Neil Trudeau referred to him as El Rojo. We killed El Rojo and ate him. Well, at the time, it was kind of nice because we actually did, for about 3 or 4 days running, couldn't get any sea rats.
Right.
They brought us around number 10 cans of smoked sausage and hot dogs, and that was our food.
Just checking.
Were they the green hot dogs?
I don't know when I didn't
Take them out of
care,
those
but
cans
we
and
just-
they had a green tint to them.
Yeah.
We ate them.
Didn't look- Yeah.
Ate them raw, actually. Hopefully we cooked them.
Yeah, mess hall closed down, remember, just left the food there. We quit eating
Oh,
our
they
sea
can.
rations
Yeah.
and for a while, they were about as nasty as you could get, I guess cooks had a technique, that make them palatable, but, we heated them with C4,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burnt most everything.
Do you remember, it was probably, first time I ever saw them was at C4, probably a month or two after we got there. They came out with spaghetti.
Oh, yeah,
We
spaghetti.
hadn't had spaghetti before.
Spaghetti sea rats?
Yeah, spaghetti and the sea rats, and you would open them up and you'd fire that piece of C4 in there, and the spaghetti would climb out the can.
That was everybody's personal favorite there for a while.
I
wasn't
know.
it?
Well,
You'd fight over
something
the
new.
spaghetti.
What was the worst? What was the sea rat that you were least likely to eat?
Well, I'm sure you've heard Hammond, Mother,
Ham and limas, yeah.
Hammond lima beans.
Unless you had some Tabasco sauce and onions and stuff like that sent from home,
Yeah.
then they weren't too bad. You could eat that.
But John Rodriguez, his wife, Maria, you may have met her in San Diego or something.
Oh,
She
yeah.
would send these Chicano aid packages. There'd be things like jalapeno peppers and things of that
Yeah.
nature in there. That was good.
Actually, I think the sea rations are better than these MREs.
Well,
They taste better,
now,
but
Hammond Motors did have one thing that we couldn't have. Remember
what's that?
that? Apricots.
Oh, that's true, yeah. I still don't eat apricots.
I don't
Yeah.
Apricots are deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They would get you killed or at least screw up your tank. You'd have to be a grunt for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was the story anyway. They
Yeah.
served apricots at the mess hall in Quaviet, Now, we didn't get down there very often, but
Uh-huh.
when we did, and they were serving apricots, we would need it, because almost every time they served it, they'd get hit with artillery, you know.
Yeah.
None
Flying
of
in.
the Amtrackers got to be where they wouldn't. So it becomes kind of a thing. I
Yeah,
heard later on in the '80s, I read a book about Marine tankers, and those guys, when they were doing a road march in Germany, of all damn places, and said, "Don't eat apricots, it'll break." And some guy had just thrown a track, and he'd eaten, one of the guys had eaten apricots.
Yeah.
And Peavy's got a story in his book about some guy that got shot. Of course, these were infantrymen. They were in 9th Marines,
Mhm.
The Walking Dead, and all those guys were wound way too tight.
Yeah. Yeah, they carried a lot of weight.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you know, in your heart of hearts, that apricots hadn't got anything to do with
Yeah.
it. But why
But
tempt
up
fate,
here,
you know?
yeah.
Well, you know, years later, studying things, it was a geish. Do you know what a geish is?
No.
It's an Irish taboo that was laid on Irish warriors of certain things they couldn't do, and if they did them, they would get in trouble.
Right.
In the story of Cuchulainn, the men of Ulster had a geish laid on them that they violated, and so every time there was somebody attacked them or came into their country, they would all be struck with menstrual cramps. And that was the reason Cuchulainn became a hero, because he wasn't part of this problem. So.
As a guy, I wouldn't worry about
Yeah.
too much about that.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, you suddenly find yourself on the rag, and
Jeez.
you're a dude, you gotta be hurting.
I think I've lost control of this interview.
Don't
Gone
worry.
to hell, ain't it?
Let me ask you a quick question. You were talking about people getting transferred and transferred and transferred. It sounds like that in many instances, you spent more time with people who have been in country when you were in the hospital afterwards, that there was more contiguous time with the same people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like John said when he prefaced this, is that it seemed like we maybe were there for 2 or 3 months when you're only there for a week or two.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa, you know, it seemed like.
See,
my
tanks
God.
were 1 or 2 vehicles generally were always, we were sent to other people, to work with other people.
Yeah,
And one of the bad things about that is those officers and non-staff NCOs and such are interested in their own people. And if they got this guy, brought in this tank crew here, let's let them go and, see if there's anything bad happening,
Yeah.
you know? Because he don't, his own buddies to get hurt, he don't really give, and it's a tank, it ain't gonna get hurt. That's what they said about Jimmy James.
Yeah.
You've heard Gary Hall's story,
Yeah.
hadn't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
And what he don't know, because I guess he wasn't there, but that next day, Gunnery Sergeant Jones, who was in charge of us, deadlined every tank that was on Route 9 down there. He would not let them go out and do anything until all them colonels got done having a pissing contest over,
Yeah.
well, let's not do this kind of foolishness anymore.
That's at night.
Yeah,
Patrol?
they sent him on a night patrol.
Yeah.
You don't take a tank on a night patrol.
We had a periscope in the tanks, you know, that was supposed to be,
Right.
that you were supposed to be able to see at night with that, you know. Only if you had light out there, though, you
Yeah.
know, it didn't work without that. And they were terrible.
Yeah.
Then you can only see right in front of you, you know.
Mhm.
It was, so I hated that. I didn't want to work at night with the infantry, especially. I was always afraid I'd run over somebody,
Yeah.
you know, or shoot them.
And the grunts didn't want to be close to a freaking tank, especially at night.
Yeah.
Because it's a big target,
Yeah.
especially at night. You hear them coming and they can shoot you from just a few feet away with an
Yeah.
RPG,
Yeah.
you know. So night action wasn't so good. We set them in every night, you know, for security, you know.
And we could provide fire support, in various
Yeah. Mhm.
ways, but, taking them out and running around in the bushes at night was really stupid.
Yeah.
I don't think they face it in Iraq and Afghanistan, though, because they're on a desert floor somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
Not to the extent we did.
Yeah.
Well, they got a lot better night vision stuff on those M1As.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they got all the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that little story yesterday as we were leaving that to me was profound. You know, I felt like at that juncture, war's getting too deadly now. Because throughout history, nighttime provided cover.
Mhm.
Armies could move at night, you know. But at C4, a staff sergeant came down with a starlight scope. And it was the first time I'd seen one. And he could range out west of us. There's a village southwest of us that the NVA would go down past an Arvin base out there and make their way down into the village and terrorize the heck out of that village. So this starlight scope revealed about 20 of them would be going down there almost every night, you know. So we concocted a little plan to set the tank up on the berm around C4
Right.
during the daytime, range out to where these NVA soldiers were coming out, and then move the tank back in the next day. We'd range out and we'd set the azimuth and everything, you know. So all we had to do was put up an aiming stake, pull the tank up there, and we had the range and the azimuth on it.
Right.
And then that new flechette round, where you could set it to open up 100 yards from the target. We used one of those and set a trap for them, you know. And I thought the tank was the only one taking part in this, you know. But right before, at dusk, we pulled the tank up and got it ready to fire. Got the elevation set on it, loaded up a canister round, set the fuse. And then an Ontos pulls up, goes over the berm, you know, and he's got 6 guns on it.
6 guns.
Yeah, 106 recoilless, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got a Navy guy up in the tower who's a fire coordinator for the New Jersey battleship that was out at sea, you know. You couldn't see him. He was over the horizon, you know. But here they came, you know. Here came the gooks coming out from behind a berm, you know, way out there, a dune really, and became visible. And I was standing there with the staff sergeant, and I was going to run over to the tank and tell the crewmen in there to fire, you know, when it was time. We got them all stretched out, about 18 of them visible, and it was going to take me just a minute to get over there and tell them to fire. We didn't have radio communications right there between the two of us. So I ran over there and I said, fire. Boom, he pulls the trigger on that 90 millimeter, out goes a flechette round, and then those 6 guns open up, boom, 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 boom. Then the horizon lights up, and here come a couple 16-inch rounds over our compound toward that target. And they didn't do that anymore. I mean, the grunts went out about 2 days later to see what we'd done.
That was Sam Batts who fired it, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sam was.
So New Jersey shot over you?
Oh yeah, it sounded like a train was going by.
Yeah.
Thing is, we probably missed 2 or 3 of them, but my God, those hellacious explosions from those 16-inch guns, you know, probably
Well,
took them
those
out.
guys are at the PTSD ward in Hanoi, I promise you.
So you're talking about $800 a round?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One of those,
We probably
several
how many
thousand.
thousand we sent on that too,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I was gonna show you if you wanna put it on your, this is a flechette. That little arrow looking thing.
There you go. It's sticking through.
Yeah, I tried to pull it out, it wouldn't come. But there used to be what?
600, I think,
600.
in each round.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of that.
300 one way and 300 the other, so they would spin.
Oh, spin? Yeah.
And that's the story, they said, but boy, it would make a mess.
Wow.
The infantry patrol came back and said, man, you wouldn't believe these guys were just peppered with darts, you know? Some of them were stuck to trees. I didn't know there were trees out there, you know? It looked like a pretty open area to me. But they didn't do that anymore. They left that village
I
alone,
bet they did.
you know? Yeah.
Now, with the village nearby, did you have to get permission to fire, or was it?
No, it was a free
Free
fire
fire.
zone.
Yeah, supposedly everything north of the Quaviette River, and at least this side of Jones Creek, which was over toward Dong Hall, was supposedly a free fire zone, though there was. And we thought they'd all been evacuated, but there was some still there.
Yeah.
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 The Vietnamese civilians, or maybe civilians, it may have been R&R Center for the North Vietnamese Army. For all
Well, it's
Yeah.
still a functioning fishing village every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Every day they go out, you know, they'd cast their nets to catch the bait fish they used and then go out
Yeah.
into the South China
And
Sea.
the war's going on all around them, and they're
Yeah.
Yeah,
fishing.
hardy people,
Yeah.
you know. They really were.
Wow.
I guess anybody would do that given the same situation. You know, what else are you gonna do?
Mm.
We'd throw a grenade in the water every now and then, you know, because they'd be casting out, you know, pulling up nothing, you know.
Yeah.
We'd throw a grenade in, boom. Of course, that was frowned upon, you know, you weren't supposed
Yeah.
to do that. And then the fish would come float
yeah,
to the top,
float
you know, and
down.
they'd grab those. And they thought we were trying to kill them at first, you know, but
Yeah.
then they'd get the fish and
Well,
wave.
they get those little teeny tiny fish, and they make,
Yeah.
they get thousands of them, and they make that mom sauce. Now, I didn't know how it was done, but Filipinos also do that, and years later, when I was working at a Filipino family's house, they had like 6 of those big gallon jars, and they had all these little fish in various states of
Oh, okay, yeah.
you know, breaking down there until they got this nice oil that they put on their rice and had a good time.
Wow.
Nut mom sauce.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that you asked if there was a free fire zone. It was, but just because we executed some of this, we weren't the only ones in on it, of course. You know, the captain was in on it. I'm
Yeah.
sure for the New Jersey to fire, you know, they probably had clearance and everything else.
You think it was coordinated? Because the Antos, was the Antos associated with you guys, or just, I mean, you guys weren't doing things every day with the Antos?
No, in fact,
But all of a sudden he pulls up for the fire.
oh, he was there at C4. I mean,
Oh,
we
okay.
knew the guy, you know, we knew him, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
casually. He
Yeah.
hung out with us at Tankers, you know. But I don't, I think that's the only time. Maybe at Mai Tai when we went there, Anto showed up there too.
There was an Ontos with us down at Quaviette when we was down there for a while.
Did you like working with him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
They've,
I like the
baby
people,
tanks.
Yeah, they're tankers, basically.
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Little baby tanks.
Probably you gotta get out to load them, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't get that MOS.
They,
A lot of people don't like tanks, though. Infantry, a lot of infantry, you know, don't like tanks
Yeah.
because.
We just finished with a gentleman, infantryman, who said,
Yeah.
I don't like tanks.
Well, they're scared of them, and I don't blame them,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you're made to work with them at night, you know. Oh, I don't want to be around that. Well, I'll tell you a story. I was sitting at C4 on the north side, and we'd had movement out there, you know, way at 900 meters to the tree line. And we rebuilt an ammo bunker, and it was just to our right, handy, close, you know, so if we needed to go get rounds, it was right there. Well, I had about a squad of grunts that wanted to sleep on top of that. And it was a beautiful night, nice, clear, breezy night. And I said, you know, if we have to fire, that gun makes an awful lot of noise, you know. But one of them was supposed to be up. That's okay, one's going to be up, and let us know if you're going to fire.
Yeah.
And I said, I will, I'll do that. So they all went to sleep. We got a fire mission. I yelled down to them, you guys better get off that bunker, we got a fire mission, you know. Nobody was awake. They were all asleep. So I yelled at them, you know, get off the bunker, we're going to fire. I couldn't wait to fire.
Yeah.
When I fired, they came off the bunker, boy, and called me every name in the book,
Yeah.
you know. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I wonder if any of them can hear today, you know.
Well, we can't, so why should they?
well, that blast effector on the, you know, went out to
Yeah.
the side. If you were too close, that could actually kill you
Yeah.
from the
Concussion.
concussion.
Yeah.
So,
Luckily, it was slightly forward, you know, then.
well, evidently all them guns on them old tanks could do that, because that's how old Grant Timmerman won one on Saipan by.
Yeah.
He hung his head out to tell him there was a fire and got a grenade in the tank with him and had to throw himself on it.
Yep. Fun times.
Yeah. And that's how we won the war.
There you go.
That's right. We're looking forward to the next one,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
From our wheelchairs. We're
exactly.
gonna be old men now.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think it's a wrap, as they.
I was the only Marine, and 5 or 6 guys wanted to be in the Army, and the rest were Navy, Air Force, you know. So apparently the Marine Corps hadn't filled its quota yet, you know. They had to get enough guys to send to another series in boot camp,
Right.
you know, which was 300, you know. And there was 2 soldiers there, or wannabe soldiers, and the guy says, "Oh, you're going in the Army?" He said, "Yeah, that's right." He says, "No, you're going in the Marine Corps.
It's hard.
We don't want to be in the Marine Corps. You don't want to be in the Army. He said, too bad, you know. He swore him in. So, you know, this whole thing about Marines always volunteer. Everybody in the Marines will volunteer. These guys didn't volunteer, you know, but they swore in as Marines.
That was a Marine draft ticket.
We worked with the guy that was a draftee too, remember?
Well, I knew one
See
in
how
the
Chris
VTS
is.
that,
Yeah.
the first year he came at Minneapolis.